Welcome back to For St. Pete's Sake, the first or the only podcast where we deep dive into everything political here in Pinellas County, the state of Florida, and beyond. My name is Christian Hotchkiss. I am your host and the president of the Stonewall Democrats of Pinellas County. I am joined, of course, as always, by my amazing vice president, Laura. Laura, how are you?
Hi, Christian. I'm doing good. I'm headed out of town this weekend to go home and celebrate my aunt for her 75th birthday. All my cousins are coming in from around the Midwest and whatnot to go celebrate her. So I'm excited to go home and see the fam. I haven't been home in like 2 years. Oops. So,
That'll be a
yeah.
good time for you to go home and reconnect with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time. I don't know. Our viewers will notice I'm in a totally different space now. I have a new microphone. I have, the background is different. So this week has been all about moving and starting fresh in a
Changes.
new
Yeah.
place. So, it's all about renewal at this point, right?
Exactly, which leads us great into our guest, which is Caprice Edmond. She is a member of the Pinellas County School Board. School, of course, starting on Mondays. So that is, our spirit of renewal, where we get that from. So welcome to the podcast, Caprice.
I'm glad to join you all. And yes, school starts Monday. I've been to several back to school events. People are out buying clothes. It's tax free. The back to school tax free event is
Yeah.
occurring all month. So no taxes on your school clothes. And again, we have excited teachers and staff and kids all ready to start the new year.
That's so awesome. I was definitely a nerdy little kid that loved to go back to school. Like I was by the end of summer, I was like, okay, what are we going to learn this year? But yeah, like I said, I was just definitely one of those nerdy ones. So, yeah, if you just want to take a minute to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you got into politics, and how you decided to run for school board.
Okay, well, it's all great. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to join you today. So I am from St. Petersburg and attended public schools, Fairmont Park Elementary, John Hopkins. I graduated from Jonathan C. Gibbs High School and attended USF St. Pete, where I bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in elementary education, a master's in educational leadership, and a certification in infant family mental health. Go Bulls. So I know it's a lot, but I
Yeah.
feel that because my passion and drive has been to advocate for children and families. So once I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I started working with youth in foster care and became a guardian ad litem. One of the many challenges they faced were the educational system. So I transitioned to teaching. I taught third and fourth grade and ended my teaching career as a science coach at Fairmont Park Elementary. Full circle, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I decided to run for office. My first campaign was during the 2020 cycle. I had filed a week before everything paused due to COVID.
Wow.
So, yes, my first campaign was during COVID, and it was in actually COVID, George Floyd's murder. So, there was a lot going on during 2020. However, I ran to improve our schools, advocate for better educational system for them and resources. And then I ended up running in 2022 because 2020 was a special election. So I ran in 2020, 2022, and now I'm back on the ballot in 2026. So that is just a little bit about what my background and what led me to run for Pinellas County School Board. Now I am the vice chair. I am the vice chairperson of Pinellas County School Board, the president of the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, which represents 10 districts legislatively. And I've served as the chair and vice chair of Florida School Board Association's Equity Committee. And within each of those groups and roles, I've advocated against book banning, advocated for inclusivity, advocated for championing the rights and the fact that slavery did not benefit Black people. So, yeah. So on
The
the
fact that anyone has to say that is just like, anyway.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I can go on and on and on about the leadership roles I've taken, the positions that have ultimately, in many cases, I've been the lone no vote. I pride myself in advocating for minorities. I am the only Black school board member. I am a minority on our school board. Um, and representation does matter at all levels.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There was we were talking before on one of our previous episodes, there is a big push right now with the like Emily's List and Vote Save America. They're doing a lot of recruiting for the local down ballot candidates right now to for the next cycles, just because that is where that's where we've lost the most ground of the past couple decades, unfortunately. So it's going to take some time to get us back. But yeah, the school board, school board's close to my heart too, because my stepmom is on the school board back in my hometown in Toledo. So that's, she's an educator too. So I know how, important that, and I know how special that is to work on the school board. And, just the variety of things that y'all deal with is as board members is really, really interesting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm currently staying with part of my background change. I'm staying with a teacher who's been a teacher now for 20 years, and she's about to go work for the Hernando County School District and as a special ed mentor, special ed teacher mentor. So I am very familiar with all things teaching and education and the school board as well. It's crazy up here in Hernando County, but Pinellas, I know you guys are working really, really hard. So um, I guess we'll dive right in. My first question for you is, how do you approach balancing the academic needs of students with the political pressures placed on public schools right now?
So the board's role is more of a governance role, and state statute provides a lot of responsibility to the superintendent. So knowing that we all have a role to play, we also have the opportunity when we know something to advocate for or against that. So some of my work occurs behind the scenes or on a state and national level. And then there are some things that are more put out broadly where that I voted against the controversial materials policy. That I advocated for masking during the pandemic to ensure the safety of all people based on the science at that time. You would know that I pulled the interagency agreement between law enforcement and the board to allow for community dialogue, and changes occurred. So I find balance in that by simply knowing what our role and responsibility is, and knowing that the people elected me to be a representative of the district. So I do my research. So you won't see me you won't see me loud and wrong on the issues. I rather wait until I have all the facts before speaking on something. Even as I watch things that are occurring in other counties like Hillsborough with the commissioner chewing them out about books. And also learning that our district, Pinellas County, they removed some of the books for review after seeing the list that the Board of Education put out as books that should not be in schools. So how do you balance that out? I think it's important that you understand the law and are able to speak with your colleagues or connect with them during the workshops, because we can't talk to each other on the phone about things that we can vote on. So I get all my, I do all my research, get all my documents, um, and then I have it shared with board members for them to read. Sometimes I'll raise the issue at a board workshop or a board meeting. And then sometimes I wait strategically, because timing is everything, right? And then I call out an issue. Um, One of the things I want to talk about briefly is because it's so relevant, and it's the federal funding that was on hold for Pinellas County and actually the nation, due to the Office of Budget Management and Linda McMahon and the Education Department freezing those funds. Now, I don't agree with the politics of these folks or how they froze the funds. And if you're aware, there was bipartisan support to release the funds. Um, they were funds that were set to hit districts' accounts on July 1. They were funds that were already budgeted and accounted for, because our budget year starts July 1. It doesn't start in October like the federal budget. So,
Right.
long story short, they released the 21st century grants and then later released it all, back to districts. Serving on the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, I met with Penny Schwinn, who was a nominee to be the Deputy Secretary of Education. She withdrew that nomination, right?
Interesting.
hmm However, some of the things that she shared with us is that expect the federal funds to cut by a third. Instead of 6 billion, it'll expect two billion, if not less. So, knowing what I know based on being involved in other groups, I brought that information to the district and I shared it with colleagues, shared it with the superintendent, and we're planning ahead. We're not counting on federal funds in the manner that we used to. And also locally, I've advocated to the state legislature regarding our district platform, the Florida School Board platform, as well as the Greater Florida Consortium platform. And again, it's a lot of info. So please feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I can talk on and on and on regarding.
No. Well, so one of the things that speaking on things that have, started at the federal level and are now being replicated here in Florida is our favorite Doge committee is now, we've got a Florida one, and the city of St. Pete, I know Mayor Welch has, he stated that they've gotten a letter from the committee or whatever it is saying that, basically they're going to come audit St. Pete. Has the school board gotten anything like that from the State Department? Has that version of like the hostility to education really set in at the state, or we're just not sure yet?
Yes, the hostility has set in on a state level, but the Doge, we have not received any letters regarding Doge for Pinellas County Schools. However, we face another challenge. We have an education commissioner who is not like any of the commissioners before. Not like Richard
Mm.
Corcoran, not like Manny Diaz. Within his first few weeks being appointed, he has already sent out several letters to superintendents, parents, teachers, and some of the people who have received those letters are offended by them. And I am glad that they are using their voice to say, hey, I don't appreciate you sending me that letter. And I've received some of those emails. It's true. There should be a separation between church and state as it relates to our
Mhm.
schools. And our schools are supposed to be inclusive of all people. So whether you're trying to retell what the law is, it's coming off as offensive to many of the families that we serve. Something else, he's telling districts which applications they can use to monitor their the books that are within the schools. Most recently, he posted on Twitter a letter he was sending to the Hillsborough superintendent regarding a book that really was a memoir of a transgender teen. So it's just really, and then there was some pushback because of the lawsuit from Equality Florida, which basically states you can have those materials. So it is that is the challenge. He is the challenge that we are facing as it relates to public education and looking at how can we work with the law, work within the confinements of the law, and support all children.
Right. And I think they've done I'm trying to remember. It's trying to remember the timelines of what happened and when and if it was federal crazy or state crazy is just, difficult right now, but there I know that a lot of the DEI cut proposal, like all that was talked about, did how much of that actually passed in this past legislative session?
So
Like about, eliminating DEI essentially.
So that wasn't really talked about this session, but the prior sections, it was the don't say gay and the Stop the Woke Act and all of that stuff going on the previous year, and it did pass. It did change some of the work of Pinellas County Schools. Um, we used to have a equity department. We no longer have an equity department. However, we have a school climate and behavior department, which is more, which is doing the role that it's intended to, like support children and behavior, put resources in place, coach teachers. Um, the equity department was providing some side by side coaching and support, but the way it's framed now, it's a cohesive group working with all departments from social services, ESE, behavior supports, and they're all working academic, they're all working collaboratively. So that in a sense was a good move. Um, and yeah, we do have the Bridging the Gap plan, which is in its going into its 10th year. June 2027 will be the end of the Bridging the Gap plan unless further action occurs, because it's a 10-year plan based on attempts to close the achievement gap between Black and non-Black students.
Hmm.
Um, August 12th, we'll be meeting in Clearwater at Ridgecrest Elementary to go over the Bridging the Gap plan and talk with community regarding the status of it. It is just definitely, just going back to the state and federal mandates and how it impacts our district. It really does. You may have heard that the Medicaid and SNAP funding cuts have occurred.
Yeah.
You may have heard about a lot of the environmental and sustainability grants are on the chopping line, specifically to Pinellas County Schools. We applied for the electric bus grant and we were able to get 20 buses. However, the potential for us to continue to apply, knowing those funds aren't going to come, or, it's them. Um, so a lot of things are being done differently on the federal level. And you may have seen that 1,400 people who work for the Department of Education were laid off, and that
Yeah.
caused some backlog in communication services. However, I spoke with staff in our Title I department, and they mentioned that the communication on their end is fine. So in some areas, it's not. So basically, what happened on the federal level, state level, impacts us locally. It impacts
Yeah.
children, it impacts the families, and we know that our schools are a microcosm of our community. So if our community is not well, then it's going to be a challenge when our kiddos come to school.
Absolutely. For sure. For sure.
it's a tough time right now, especially with who we have as education secretary. Former wrestling CEO turned small business administrator in Trump's first uh, time in
Oh,
office.
is
And
she
now
small business administrator too?
it was.
Is she a Marco Rubio with multiple titles?
She
Like,
was. During his first term, she was a small business secretary or administrator, whatever it was. But now she's somehow magically turned into education secretary. So, it's a weird time when we see wrestling people coming in, but I guess we have a whole bunch of that as far as TV personalities just running the country now. Um, it's scary. Um,
Have you heard about efforts for getting out the vote? Like, I know we keep talking about federal impact, state, local. I mentioned that I've launched my campaign, and we're going to start canvassing and phone banking, doing all that stuff now
yeah.
because there's, so much at stake that we can't leave a door unlocked, a phone unring because people may have fatigue.
oh yeah.
Like it definitely wears on you when you see all this negative stuff in the news, and then you have some people, the people who are invigorated and show up to the protests every time there is one, because they want to express their frustration and be in solidarity. So it's like, okay, let's use that momentum to make sure that everybody has registered to vote or check their mail in ballot and all the things they need to do so that in 2026, we're ready.
Yep, and that's exactly what we focused on this summer at Pride and at other events over the summer was making sure that people were registered to vote and that everybody checked their mail-in ballot status since, everybody got essentially purged from their being able to request it, having their mail-in ballot requested. They have to, ask again every year. So yeah, that's definitely been the focus of our caucus and the Pinellas Democratic Party too, for sure. Because you're right, it's fatigue when you're paying definitely when you're paying attention, but also like when you're, most people are just like living every day and like trying to like figure out like how am I going to get the kids from here to there, and like do I have time for dinner, do I have enough money to roll through McDonald's tonight instead, like blah 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 blah, and you don't have time to worry about the our president just wandering around on the roof of the White House for unknown reasons. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so hard to capture attention and the people, especially the people that are being impacted the most by these horrible policies.
And just to support what you're saying is as inflation increases, people are being priced out of their home right here in
Oh, absolutely.
Pittsburgh. It is not affordable.
Hmm.
And then you have the fact that with the new changes on the federal level, housing has changed. It's no longer going to be where you can be on housing forever. You're going to have to be showing proof that you are working towards being able to sustain your own housing without government assistance or as much. So, yeah.
Well, and the Supreme Court, I think it was last term or earlier this term, they had a case that basically criminalized being unhoused, where they can make, they can pass laws and make rules that say it can be a criminal act for public sleeping, um, which we'll come back to that in one of our later sections.
And just to, because that is true. That's true right here in Pinellas County. I did serve on the Homeless Community Alliance, HLA. And one of the things that we learned is the impact of these laws. We had, how they would shuffle unhoused people from one area to the next and then say they couldn't live in certain parts And then now, I believe it was last week, someone is suing because of people who reside at Williams Park. So it's just really, really, really a sad situation that we are in, knowing that housing is scarce.
Yeah. The housing is scarce, the price of everything has gone up, and it's such a terrible time for so many people. And so that leads me to my next question, which is mental health continues to be a top concern for families, of course. So what's the district doing to support students' mental health and social emotional well-being?
Mhm. So annually, we are required to submit a mental health plan to Florida State. And yep, annually. And we do receive funding to support mental health from the state government. However, it is not enough to cover the amount of services and needs of our students, but Pinellas County Schools puts up the money. They fit the bill to do the best they can within budget constraints to serve the children and families. We partner with several organizations, the Directions for Living, Suncoast for Mental Health. We have social workers, guidance counselors, psychologists, all of those individuals doing great work embedded within our schools. Sometimes the amount of support and resources a child scope of the district, so we connect them to those resources. There's most recently, I had the opportunity to connect Pinellas Community Foundation hub. They are part of the hubs that you hear about in St. Pete with the school district. So they are actually, today's Wednesday. They are connected. They were connecting with social services today, speaking with guidance counselors about their role in the community and how students can connect. But we have guidance counselors, psychologists, social workers throughout the district. Sometimes they work at multiple schools depending on enrollment. We have some schools with fewer than 200 kids or 300 kids. So it is allocated based on enrollment. We provide gifted screening, ESE screening. We complete functional behavior assessments within the district. And again, a lot of referrals based on parent request. Um, and just to talk about something new that the district is doing, it is being more intentional regarding silent sufferers. That was the term that we used. And those are typically your students who are performing well academically, well behaved. So they would go under the radar as being a kiddo who may um, self harm or try to commit suicide. And over the past few years, the kids who have committed suicide have been those type of students where you never would expect that something was going wrong and that they would do that to themselves. And it's truly heartbreaking. And a lot of it stems from peer pressure, bullying, uh, appearances, and high expectations that students may not feel that they're able to meet. So, just wrapping our arms around students and making sure they are aware of all the resources and that there are safe spaces within our schools and outside of our schools, that if they need help, they can reach someone. So again, we have See Something, Say Something app. So if someone hears about anything negative or believes something's going to occur, they can alert the district, and immediate action happens. We do have filters on everything. And another positive is we have started including the students in the videos about mental health.
That's a really good idea. So it's like peer to peer.
Yep. And that again, that came from them. I went to Lakewood High School, and of course they have a journalism program. So I talked to the students and they were like, yeah, we saw the mental health video, but it would have been cooler if we had the opportunity to do it. And so just adding more student voice to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, the Department of Health and partners, which include JWB, Pinellas County Schools, the city of St. Petersburg, and several others, they are establishing a health governance committee, which will be ran by the youth, where they look at the data and determine how they want to go about advocacy or education amongst peers. Which is so I think that's important to share. That's another great thing.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's amazing.
I was gonna say, it seems like, I'm, a single lesbian. I don't have any kids, especially. So, I don't know a ton about the Pinellas County School District, but it seems like they've got the really cool, like IB, which we called AP programs in Ohio, and it seems like a lot of the schools have different, like, um I
Magnet.
can't remember what school it was that I drove past, but they had, like, they've got the Culinary Institute, like they got all these cool different, like, studies that they could do, and it just, I mean, I we don't have that in my hometown in Ohio, so I think that's, I mean, just a really cool thing to see around here.
And what you're talking about is our attempt at preparing all students for a college career in life. So if students are able to, as early as middle school, begin earning certifications,
Yeah.
exploring what their interests are, and then going to a high school that feeds off of that. So as you mentioned, culinary, right?
Hmm.
Northeast High School has a culinary program. Hollins has a culinary program. Gibbs High School has a business academy. They also have the Performing Arts Academy. Tarpon Springs, Bogosiega have medical magnets. So again, when we're talking about preparing kids for life, exposing them to the career opportunities is important. Whether it's trades or they'll obtain a certification and then go off to college, it's again that early exposure. And then that makes me think about our college and career centers. Each high school has a college and career center, as well as a dedicated staff member. And this was sponsored by Pinellas Education Foundation and the district.
Wow. Yeah, those are really cool.
It is. What they do there is help them with applications for college, applying for financial aid, looking at careers, building their resume, writing a resume. And it's not just about trade schools or college. If they're interested in JROTC, I mean, the Army or the military, all of those options are available as well. They have recruiters come out. So it's really different from when I was in high school, and it's great.
Yeah, I remember the process of trying to apply for college and financial aid was just so, like, you're already, like, overwhelmed with senior year and, like, trying to be excited, and then it's like, oh, you have to make this decision that's gonna impact, the rest of your life that everyone keeps telling you. So, yeah.
Yeah, and this my next question kind of goes into that because there's already a lot of pressure on our students. So, um, do you feel like there's too much emphasis on standardized testing in our schools? And if so, what would a better model be? It sounds like you guys are already working on that, but we still have this emphasis from the state level and from the national level on just like testing and pass this test, not really preparing people for the real world.
So there are multiple things that I can say. There's definitely a lot that I can say about this topic. Just to give you just a short little background, we know that the Florida standards, they went from FSA to the FAST assessment underneath the governor, right? So now we have a lot of school districts earning A's and schools earning A's. And the leadership is saying it's due to them changing the test and raising the standards and all of the things that they're implementing, right? Yeah, right. So
Sure.
if if it, if I had the opportunity to legislate, I would advocate for less testing. Um, we do a lot of testing, and it's state mandated testing. So ultimately, we have to do these steps because it's mandated of us to do it. Otherwise, I would have less testing, more play, more hands-on learning, more fun. Um, I think we struggle, especially in middle school, with behavior due to the change and transitions of academics. So you go from having mainly one teacher and electives to having seven teachers and different expectations and all of those tests. And again, middle school is where we see the most discipline challenges. It's also where we see where we could do better as it relates to academic performance.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up and I went to high school or middle school in a time when the FCAT was still around. And I just remembered that it just seemed like the entire year was focused on getting to that one test. And if you don't pass, you don't get anything out of life. And so it's good to hear that, you know, some of that has changed, even though it sounds like this new fast is very similar in certain ways.
It's a,
Yeah, it go ahead.
it's a performance test, so they take it at the beginning of the year, and then they take it in the middle of the year and at the end of the year. However, throughout the year, they're trying to obtain all the knowledge that's going to be on the test to show growth. So again, they are preparing them for a test.
And I mean, like, I like understand the concept is you want to be able to demonstrate progression and growth for throughout the year. And like, I get it. It's like the same way of like funding schools based on property taxes. Like, I get it. We got to fund the schools some way, and like based on property seems like the fairest until you like scratch just a little bit below the surface. And I don't know. I know at least in Ohio they had ruled that funding schools based on property taxes was unconstitutional, but literally nobody's figured out a way to do it that makes sense. I mean, Ohio's just ignored that rule for like 30 years.
Is that where the governor's getting his tips from?
Oh, probably. I mean, yeah. It's Ohio's interesting, yeah, because J.D. Vance originated from Ohio. He was the senator, and so when he is now obviously the vice president, and then the lieutenant governor was filled by the governor to his seat, and then of course, what are you going to do with your lieutenant governor? Well, you're going to find the college football coach that everybody loves, Jim Tressel, and appoint him your lieutenant governor, and now he thinks he wants to run for governor. It's like, can we just like reality stars, football coaches? Like, I mean, I know we want to encourage more people to run for office, but like, I think we can do without like the personalities anymore.
Do you want the next question?
I mean, I guess this is something, and I'm not. I haven't seen anything about this. With this school being starting, and this, the current climate being what it is with alligator Alcatraz down in the Everglades. What is Pinellas' plan if should come ice come knocking on the school doors? Do we have do we have a response for that? Are we, where are we at with that?
Mm-hmm. So you may have heard about Pinellas County Schools and the signing of the interagency agreement with the ICE. But that is null and void. We do not have an agreement with ICE, and our attorney put out a memo to everybody, just providing some education that if there is an ICE official that comes to a school or location where the kids are, they are to contact our attorneys contact legal and go from there as far as next steps. It is also important just to note that federal law And the Constitution requires us to teach all children. And we do not question citizenship when
Yeah.
we enroll. So we do have some students who may not be born here.
Yeah. Yeah, I will never. I was hanging out with one of my friends the other day, and her neighbor was there with her daughter who did an exchange program in high school and went to France, and then the girl from France came over here, and like now they've been friends for 6 years and blah blah whatever. And I'm just like, it's so cool that these girls are just sitting here speaking three languages, but like one of the languages that they learned is Spanish. And so, and one girl like looks, has an appearance that could be considered like, whatever. And so it's just like it's like, who cares? These people like, I don't know. I remember a time when knowing more than one language is like was tops. You wanted to do that, but now it seems to be looked down upon, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you're saying just reminds me of just the state of the nation, It was a time where LGBTQ plus people could just walk around and be themselves, not even worry. Now you have people trying to figure out what bathrooms you should be going to. And I'm just like, well, that's creepy in itself. But um, it's just again a sign of the times. But what is encouraging to me is the amount of compassion and just sheer advocacy and responsibility that our teachers, our students, and even some of the school board members take on when it comes to advocacy.
yeah.
In Pinellas County Schools, we are one of 11 districts with an inclusive support guide out of 67.
Oh, there's 67, only 11 have it? Wow.
And it is compliant with the law. But we are the only, yeah.
Mm, that just sounds crazy to me. And I know our political system is wild right now, just in general. So this would be a good segue. Um, as a school board member in an increasingly politicized environment, how do you stay grounded in the student-centered leadership? How do you focus on that?
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Our kids, 100% student success. If someone was to listen to the workshops, they would hear that I'm advocating and asking questions regarding every type of student, whether they're a gifted learner, student with disabilities, a ESE child, a Black student, a gifted learner. They would see that top of mind is how are we supporting every student? How are we making sure that we are wrapping resources and supports around our economically disadvantaged students, our unhoused students, our military families? How
Mhm.
are we making sure that we are truly aspiring to 100% student success? So that's
Absolutely.
how I do it. And sometimes it leaves me, as that lone no vote. Sometimes I'm able to garner support of my colleagues. And again, I must say that our school board is very collaborative. Nothing's really contentious unless it's something coming down from the state.
Well, and it's funny, I just I remember when the pandemic set in, and I know things were a little different down here in Florida, but like, when everybody was like essentially working from home and homeschooling their child at the same time, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, teachers are worth everything," and they were, and now it's just so quickly it turned, against them, it turned away from education and being inclusive. And I teachers are just, you have to have that special thing in your heart to want to essentially help raise 30 kids at one time. So
Absolutely.
And a lot of people who work for the school district have other jobs and
Mhm.
yeah.
to take care of.
But yeah,
Leading with compassion, trying to understand, as well as, holding people accountable is very important.
absolutely. I've heard a lot of teachers say that they didn't get into teaching for the money. It's not about how much they're going to make. Because, like you said, a lot of teachers have second, sometimes even third jobs, and just to make it through and just to pay their bills. But they're still focused on the students, which is really, really inspiring.
Yep.
Oh, but just to thank the voters in Pinellas County for passing the referendum, because of them, teachers and support professionals will have a raise and
Ooh.
continue to support the arts, music, and reading for our students as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, hearing the support for arts and music is just like, yay, because
As
that's
a
always the
band
first
nerd,
thing that gets me up.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely a
exactly.
band
Theater
nerd.
nerd, so yeah. Well, I think that would be a good time to maybe transition to our final section of our shout out or shut down. I know I have a shutdown, so I don't know. Maybe I should go in the middle. I don't know if anybody's got a shout out they want to start with.
I have a shout out. Shout
Okay.
out to all of the students, families, and faculty who are going to have a great first day and rock the rest of the year as we head back to school.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about you, Christian? What do you got? Do you
I
even shout out or shut down?
I'm gonna make a personal shout out, and it may relate to some people, but my shout out is to some of my friends and family who have just been very, very supportive and amazing over the past number of weeks, because it's been a very tumultuous time in my life, and I want to shout out all of those people who just open their doors to anyone in need, especially when you're down on your luck and going through the hardest times of your life. So if you are one of those people that has opened your door and helped other people out, thank you. And to anybody who's listening that has helped me out, thank you. So shout out to them.
Absolutely. Family and friends that become family are that's all that we've got really. So,
Absolutely.
as I said before, I've got a shutdown and we alluded to it a little bit earlier. There is a business and I don't want to say their name because I don't want to be like, you can find it on Instagram. It's not hard to find out at this point. But it's based in their First Avenue North spot. They've also got another spot in downtown St. Pete. So it's like anyway, it's a little oversaturation if you ask me. But yeah, they're on First Ave North, right across the street from Williams Park, and the owner's been making a huge deal about alleged interactions that they have with the unhoused people in Williams Park. I've not had I've not had any bad problems with people. I just think that there's an understanding, especially at Williams Park, that it's you let people live and they pretty much let you live. But this business owner has sued the city to, in fact, enforce the no public sleeping, the law, to make it illegal to sleep in public. And I know that when I was driving by yesterday, I saw, more police presence around Williams than I've seen previously. That's my shutdown, is that, we are, criminalizing homelessness isn't going to fix anything. We have a affordability crisis and an availability crisis. I don't know if we have an availability crisis, but we definitely have an affordability crisis. And calling the cops on somebody who, you know, it and maybe they have a mental health problem, putting them in jail is not going to help that, and it's not going to make anything better. So that's my little shutdown for today. So That's all I got.
Well, that's a good shutdown because you're right. If we just criminalize homelessness and being poor, that's not going to help anybody. We have to have resources to help these people. And so, um, yeah, that's awful. Well, Caprice, I want to thank you so much. Where can people find you online if they want to follow along with your journey and your campaigns?
I am on social media, Facebook. Look for Caprice Edmond. If you want to follow my school board account that has all things school board related, that is Caprice Edmond, Pinellas County School Board member, District 7. And if you are interested in learning more about my campaign, visit votecaprice.com.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at For St. Pete's Sake. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen. If you want to leave us a rate and review, that would really help too. We'll be back next week with more stories from the people doing the hard work to make our community better. Until next time, For St. Pete's Sake, keep pushing for change.